Thank you very much. Maybe while I start, I would already kindly ask all of you to please mute your mics because we had some noise here. I think now it's okay. Great. Thank you very much and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining the session of the GTAP Conference 2022 on economic analysis for effective implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA. The session is showcasing cooperation between GIZ and the UN ECA, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. My name is Xaver Keller. I'm a trade policy advisor at the German Organization for International Cooperation, GIZ. I am part of the support program to the AfCFTA based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So I'm joining you today also from Addis Ababa, where the rainy season is starting. I am leading our work on a number of issues, including trade and services, but also other topics like also impact analysis of trade. And in that respect, I'm also, I have been working together with colleagues from UNECA, from the UN Economic Commission for Africa, particularly also the African Trade Policy Center, ATPC, for the past 2.5 years. As part of this cooperation, a couple of studies have been conducted, and we will see some of that work actually today in the session. Angel Aguiar from the Center for Global Trade Analysis is hosting the session and also recording it, and he will also help us ensure to keep the time that we have. So even though we started a few minutes late, I think together with me and with Angel, I hope that we will manage to keep the time and to finish the session in time. Before getting to the presentations, please allow me to just remind you of a few housekeeping rules and protocol so that everything runs smoothly. As I asked in the beginning, I would kindly ask all attendees, except for the person currently speaking, to please keep your mic on mute. Otherwise, it will be difficult to follow. And then presentations are
can you hear me? I think maybe there's some internet, or I was thinking the audio was
for
going
20
off.
minutes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we have a slight change in program.
Hello?
Hello, everyone.
I think we lost you for a little bit.
Okay, I'm very sorry for that. The Zoom just restarted. I hope. Where did you lose me?
You were telling about the 20 minutes per presentation, and I think.
Okay. All right. Thank you, and sorry for that. So I was just saying that we have a slight change in program. That Simon Mervel, who was supposed to also be a discussant in that session today, cannot join us. For that reason, we have a bit more time at hand. This will be used partly by the first presentation by our first presenter, who will add some aspects to his presentation. But then we also want to use the time just for additional time in the discussion and Q&A. And also, given that we started a few minutes late, I think we don't even have that much time at our disposal anyway. So the host will prompt all the presenters 2 minutes before the end of their time. And then when the allotted presentation time has elapsed, if the presentation has not already ended, the host, Angel, will prompt again, and then we will have to move to the discussion period. So we have to be strict on time today. Discussion periods are 10 minutes and immediately follow each presentation. So for questions and comments, it would be great if you could add them right into the chat. but all participants can also raise their virtual hands. Thank you, Angel. Yeah, you can ideally write it to the chat. Otherwise, you can also raise your hand during the discussion and read them aloud. So I will also see as the chair, depending on how much time we have. And then we can give the presenters time again to respond to these questions. Following all but the final presentation, there will be a 2-minute transition period to allow the next presenter to load their presentation. I hope that everything runs smoothly. Now we actually agreed that I, as the chair, as the chair, will probably share the presentations myself to reduce any technical issues. So on the content, today we have 3 presenters. Without further ado, I would also like to introduce already the first of them. So we have Souleymane Sadio Diallo from UNECA ATPC, the African Trade Policy Center of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. He will be presenting on CGE modeling in ATPC in general, and then CGE microsimulation methodology and results for selected countries in Africa. Very much looking forward to your presentation, Souleymane. The floor is yours, and let me actually share your presentation. 1 second. I hope now this works. So I hope you can see it. I will change to presenters mode. Can you quickly confirm? Yes, I see thumbs up. Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, Souleymane, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Xaver. Thank you, all of you. And as you mentioned, I have to speak about the subject initially scheduled. It is the poverty and inequality impact of the AfCFTA focus on selected African countries. But unfortunately, Simon has not been able to be with us, so he asked me to speak about the CGE modeling we are doing in ATPC. I would like to tell that I am in ATPC for 2 years now in the framework of the support of GIZ to ECA. And thank you very much, Xaver, to you and all of your team, and also to Simon for the support. Now, my presentation will be focused on 5 points. The first one is the introduction, in which I will talk about the modeling work we are doing in ATPC, and then talk about the objective of the study I have to present to you this afternoon, and including the methodological aspect of the study and the result we have. And I will have some concluding remark on the results, and I'll be very happy to have your comments in order to improve the work. Let's go next. Okay, what can I say is that since few years, ECA is undertaken significant research to support decision-making in the negotiation and the implementation of the AfCFTA, which is very important because the objective of that kind of work is to supply some evidences for the decision-making based on the work of modeling and the simulation work we can do with different kind of models, economic models. And in this framework, ATPC and more broadly the ECA has established different collaborative relationship with several international funding and research structure. Among those structure, we can talk about the cooperation between ATPC and CEPI in France, and this cooperation is based on the development and the improvement of the Mirage model. The Mirage model is a global CGE model which can help to simulate different options of free trade areas and different policy reform in trade and other economic policies. The work is to improve the model in order to use it to simulate the impact of the AfCFTA, but also to simulate the impact of different aspects like the environmental impact of the policy, the trade policies, and also the development of regional value chain in order because in the AfCFTA process, the development of regional value chain is an objective of the negotiation and the implementation. Next. Okay. And also in this exercise, ATPC and ECA have benefited from the support of GIZ for the modeling aspects. I came to ATPC through this support, and the objective is to help for building CGE models and micro simulation models. And the micro simulation models are very important because they help to analyze the social impact of the agreements. I mean, the poverty and inequality aspects. And the result of this work will be presented today. And beyond this modeling exercise, we have also the support of GIZ and other donors have helped to collect and to build some data base. We have worked with Engel on the elaboration of supply and use table in the GTAP format, and other consultants have been recruited to do for that. And the objective is to increase the coverage of African countries in the GTAP database. And in this presentation, I will briefly introduce the methodology developed through the cooperation with CEPI and the support of GIZ before discussing the result of the simulation we have got in the team. Next. So the objective of the study which will be presented is to assess the impact in terms of poverty and inequality of the AfCFTA implementation. And it will normally help to facilitate the negotiation. And the study is strictly focused on the Continental agreements. It aims to contribute to the debate on the next phase of the negotiation. And the study is part of all the activities I mentioned above. Next. So in the framework of a cooperation between ATPC and CEPI, they have improved the Mirage E model, which is a global CGE model. It's a dynamic one. And in these activities, we try to include the maximum of African countries we can. But we can have some difficulty to expand the countries because of the convergence of the model. So for this version, we have only 18 African countries. And the other African countries are grouped in different blocks. There are 4 for the different region of the continent. And the model in fact, the same characteristic of the version of the model of Fontanier, Fuer, and Ramos 2013. And it used the GTAP 10.10.1 database to calibrate the model. And the scenarios has been developed using the latest bilateral market access database, the MacMap HS6, to define the different scenario. Next. And for this exercise, we have developed 4 scenarios. Inside, we have the scenario A, which is the liberalization of trade inputs only, without other reforms. And after, we include progressively different aspects. The first in Sim A is the tariff combined with a reduction of 50% of existing actionable restriction on products and services. And the Sim C, which is the central scenario, we consider it is the most realistic if we regard the negotiation and the different agreement obtained until now. It means we have tariff reduction combined with a reduction of 50% of existing of actionable restriction on trade and services, and a reduction of 50% of actionable and for non-tariff measures. And the last one, it is the first simulation A, which is combined with a reduction of all the existing actionable restriction on trade and services, and a reduction of all the actionable non-tariff measures. Next. So how we continue with this model, because we wanted to go beyond the aspect of macroeconomic impact and sectoral impact. We wanted to know how the agreements will impact households in terms of income distribution and poverty. So we combined the CGE models, the Mirage Model 1, with a micro simulation model. But we developed single country models for the micro simulation. And we use the result of the CGE models to feed the micro simulation model at the country level to see how it can impact the countries in terms of poverty reduction and inequality. Next. So the micro simulation model briefly is simply a non-parametric model. It belongs to the reweighting approach pioneered by Aguiar in 1993, and it is able to help capturing the complex of economic interaction taking place between economic agents and within and between countries and sectors. So the micro simulation model capture income distribution and consumption behavior across the population based on the estimation of the income probability distribution proposed by Lee and Church. And it is, in fact, built to capture the changes in the probability associated with the individual income or the household incomes induced by the change of the mean per capita income through the generalized entropy measure. So, and considering the limitation of in terms of resolution of the software we can have, as I mentioned, we don't have all the 26 countries included in the GTAP base we use, but we try to aggregate some of them, and we retain 18 countries. And for the micro simulation models, the development of the models was depending on the availability of recent household survey data. And we have, until now, developed 12 models, and I want to present the result for some of them, not all the 12, but some of them. Next. And the presentation will be limited to the scenario C mentioned above, which is the more realistic and which we call the central scenario. It means that we will reduce tariffs on goods combined with the reduction of 50% of the actionable measure of trade in services and 50% of the NTMs. Next. In terms of macro impacts, the result indicate that for the countries we examine, all of them have a positive impact if we consider the graph here. This graph presents the deviation from the baseline scenario for the simulation C for the years of 2045. The model is simulated for the period going from 1913 to 1945. And what we have here, we have in blue the amount of GDP gained from the implementation of the AfCFTA, and the line in red represents the deviation in terms of percentage. It is the percentage point obtained from the implementation of the AfCFTA. So what we have indicate that the country like Nigeria, Kenya, Zimbabwe have the most important in terms of absolute value, but in terms of relative performance, we have the countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, and Tanzania. Some of them have a very small gain, like Rwanda, Morocco, and Uganda, also for Ethiopia. What is important is that even if the impact is very modest, it is positive for all the countries we analyze here. So in terms of growth, economic growth, it is positive. But the question is how which will impact the households. Next. So to answer to this question, we built some micro simulation model, and the starting point for all the countries is in brackets, depending on the years of the services. The most household survey data we had is one of Morocco, and the most recent is the data from Ethiopia and Senegal. And we have here the poverty rate by country at the national level.
Sorry, Souleymane, 2 minutes. You have 2 more minutes.
Okay. Here we have the poverty impact, the initial poverty rate for different countries. Next. Next, please. But now in the end of year, in the end of the period of simulation, what we have for the different countries in terms of poverty. What we have is that for all countries, poverty is declining at the end of the period. And the most important decline is for Côte d'Ivoire, but the decline is very small because even if for Côte d'Ivoire, it is only for 1.3 points of percentage of reduction of poverty rate. Next, please. And in terms of person moving out of poverty, the most important result is for Côte d'Ivoire. We have around 20% of the poor in Côte d'Ivoire in 2045, which will move out of poverty. And the most small is for Rwanda, just 0.1%. Next. If we consider the gender aspect of the impact, here we have a result for the different countries, comparing the result for the countries for male and women with and without AfCFTA. And the decline, the most important decline is from Côte d'Ivoire, both for male and female. And then for Tanzania, and also, please, next. And the poverty, the person moving out of poverty also, we have the most important result for Côte d'Ivoire and Kenya. And what is important here is that for all the countries, men have best result than women, and except for Morocco and Cameroon and Senegal, please. Men have most opportunity to get out of poverty, moving out of poverty than women. Next. In terms of place of residence, we have also similar results. And here, the reduction is more important for rural areas than urban in terms of poverty decline, poverty rate decline. But next, please. If we consider the number of people or the proportion of people moving out of poverty, the result is more favorable to urban areas than rural one, because the rural areas, the urban areas have more opportunity to capture with the AfCFTA than the rural one. And also there are some aspects related to the education and the quality of employment, which can explain the results. But in terms of proportion, there are more people living out of poverty than rural area. Next, please. So in terms of conclusion, the result indicate that the implementation of the free trade area will have positive impact both in economic growth and in poverty reduction. However, the magnitude will be small, And in 2045, poverty will still be predominantly in rural areas, and the proportion of persons moving out of poverty will be greater in rural than in urban areas in terms of absolute number, but in terms of relative term, it will be the inverse. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Souleymane. Now, I would suggest that we go ahead right away. I would have a couple of questions myself, but of course, I don't want to abuse my role as a session chair. I would propose that we take one question maybe now only, because we extended your presentation a little bit. And then this way we can actually take some more questions in the end of the session, because I suppose that some of the questions might even be connected or might be similar across the different presentations, since thematically I think the different presentations, they cover similar aspects. Maybe if there are any, I don't see any questions in the chat so far, but if there are any questions from the audience, maybe with respect to the modeling part, the general part, or the overall results that Souleymane showed from the micro simulations, before we go into two specific country examples, please come and raise your question now. Either raise your hand or write them in the chat, or just unmute yourself. Any questions? Maybe, okay, if we don't have that, if we don't have a question right now, then maybe I would actually start with a question myself, and do use actually my role as chair. Souleymane, I mean, I think generally these micro simulations are extremely interesting, and they add a lot to, I think, the existing macro simulations that we know from some existing studies, for example, by the World Bank, also by ECA. So maybe I would have a very general question, just how the results from your micro simulations differ from, in principle, do they differ from any of the sort of macro simulation results that we know? For example, the World Bank study that I think is cited quite a lot on AfCFTA impact, but also maybe to some of the work that has been done by ECA in the past.
Okay, thank you very much. In fact, I don't know if before this work, the ECA have done micro simulation models combined with CGA in terms of the evaluation of the impact of AfCFTA. They have the evaluation of the impact of at the macro and sectoral level, but not in terms of poverty, if I'm not wrong. And for the World Bank, yes, they have a micro simulation combined with the CGA model, and they have a lot of interesting results. But what is different from what we have done is that we try to go beyond the national level of poverty evaluation. We try to have the impact at the poverty rate level, at the regional, rural, and urban, gender, but also we are not presented here. We have the result for different educational level and a different employment status of the persons. So it is the value added after we can have compared to the World Bank evaluation, because we can answer how the poverty rate can be affected by educational level, by place of residence, rural area, and by status of employment. I mean, if the person is a farmer or an employee in the modern sectors, and if the person is an independent worker, and so on. That's the value added you can mention with the work we have done for this exercise.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the response, Souleymane. Now I see we have one question, one raised hand, so I would take that one question now. And then after the question and the answer, we would immediately move on to Dr. Hicham. We're a few minutes past our planned schedule, but since we won't have the discussion session afterwards, I think in overall time-wise, this should be fine. So I have Raouf Radouane. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Very quick question and very interesting presentation of Souleymane. My question is about how did you manage to implement the reduction of NTBs by 50%? What's the way in the model? Very quick. Thank you.
Okay, we try to translate the barrier, to convert them in terms of tariffs ad valorem, and to reduce this cost. Because we consider that the non-tariff measures are per nature not quantifiable, so we try to convert them in terms of equivalent tariff, and we reduce 50% of these amounts. I don't know if you understand.
Okay, I catch it. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the question and the response. So with that, then without further ado, thank you very much again, Souleymane, for your presentation. And I'm sure we can go back also to maybe some of the issues in the discussion in the end. Please, everyone, let me join me in thanking Souleymane very much. A round of virtual applause. Thank you for your presentation, Souleymane. Thanks for the question. And with that, we would immediately move over to Dr. Hicham. I saw that it's already working. Perfect. So if you can again move to the presenter mode, we can see the slides. So our next presenter is Dr. Hicham Attouch from Mohammed V University in Rabat, Morocco. So he will be presenting on the impact of AfCFTA implementation in Morocco. It's basically a very interesting extension, I think, of what we heard from Souleymane, now looking at one specific country case in Morocco. Dr. Hicham, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to present my first exercise in economics modeling after 3 years for training with Antoine Bouet, Simon Meville, and Souleymane Sadio Diallo, who give me coaching to achieve this work. I'm Hicham Attouch from Mohammed V University, Morocco. My presentation discusses impact of AfCFTA implementation on foreign trade, growth and welfare in Morocco, accountable general equilibrium approach. In this presentation, the plan is this: introduction, problem, evolution of Morocco's international trade in AfCFTA, methodological approach of the study, analysis, and discussion of the result and conclusion. Of introduction, AfCFTA be a space for inclusive development and growth, lifting of tariff and no tariff barrier in the country, Until 29 and 2089, Moroccan African trade average annual growth of 60.1%, and the direct investment Morocco in West Africa is growth rate of 8.3%. Morocco is present in 29 countries, so it's the importance of this area. The problem, the question was, what are the macroeconomic implications of the implementation of the AfCFTA on foreign trade, growth, and welfare in Morocco? Evolution of Morocco international trade in the years 2018 for 2019 was Europe occupied the first place with 63 of importation and 72.5 in export. But Africa haven't an important place in the global of export and import, and we wish to try it's the area of change can give Morocco the positive result. In rates, coverage rate, we think that Morocco was a positive result for Africa, but not the same with Europe in this evolution. Globally, the change of Morocco in export in 29 is approximately $2 billion US, and importation is the same 20 billion US. For export, the most export has food, chemical industry. In imports from Africa, the import energy, Morocco import energy, food, and extraction of coal, lignite, and peat. From methodological approach, the model we used is paper NT, dynamic recursive multi-sector single country computable general equilibrium. The segmentation of the rest of the world account and import and export checks has done by Lawson Spoka and Diallo Souleymane in 2022. This figure present that is meant modification we done. It's this great export and import in order between intra-Africa trade and thus with the rest of the continent, from export and from import. The welfare was measured essentially by the change in household income, consumption, and saving. For developing of our model, we have adopted standard assumption. Nominal exchange rate and factor on dominant are fixed. Capital is immobile between sector. Moroccan has no influence on world price. Moroccan cannot borrow without a limit from the rest of the world. The government spending is an exogenous variable. The model was calibrated on using social accounting matrix of the Moroccan economy from 25. From a description of data, we use matrix of official social accounting of Morocco and other document like table of research and use, table of integrated economy account, and integrates data on foreign trade with the various continents. Our own matrix, thus it included the three-factor account, labor, public capital, and private capital. 5 agent account represent farm, a representative household, a government, rest of Africa, and other continents. It also included 5 tax account for each of the following category activity, product and export product. Our matrix is composed of 10 accounts. As far as we have a accumulation account, they have a number of 3: private investment, public investment, and change in stock. What is our scenario from deviation for baseline scenario? It simulates a graduate reciprocally abolition by 2031 of customs duty between Morocco and the rest of Africa. That is a horizon of 17 years from 2015, from 15 and 2020 without change. Analysis and the discussion of the result. First, change in Morocco export. Our result, the graduate abolition of customs duty will have a slightly negative impact on export to Africa before resuming from 2026. The change is minimal for the other continent and in total. From import, the change in Morocco, the gradual abolition of customs duty will have a very positive impact from 2021 on import from both Africa and other partners, like a 10% additional. What are the other macroeconomics implications? First, the Morocco impact on economic growth and investment. We have Moroccan gross domestic product at basic price falls slightly at the start of the shock before steadily increasing to gain more than 3% over time. In gross fixed capital formation, we have the same progression. It's follow trend of gross domestic product. It gains 60% at 2031. For total investment expenditure, the same trend emerged from the result of our simulation for public and private investment, with increase by 4% and 6% respectively at 2031. Impact of total income and saving. The total income of all economic agents, all agents see their total income improve around 3%, with an achievement for the rest of Africa 7%. For government revenue from tax and import duty, the change is the same despite the fall in revenue from import duty in the rest of Africa, resulting from the gradual dismantling. Tax return will improve slightly, more particularly from revenue from tax and products and import, which are up 3% at the horizon of our simulation. For saving, the change in saving of economic agent is all agents see their saving improve, but the big winner is the rest of the world, excluding Africa, with 16%, and the big loser is the rest of Africa with 116 in his saving. Impact on the welfare and of a household. According to the result of our simulation, household will see their standard of living improve by 3% at horizon of our simulation. Change total income household, change disposal income household, change consumption budget household, change household saving. All these variables are progressing for our simulation. Then is equivalent variation of household is the same. For conclusion, in this context, our simulation show that the macroeconomic implications are generally positive. The progressive tariff dismantling simulated between Morocco and the rest of Africa for the period certainly generates positive impact on all macroeconomic indicators and for all agents. However, the result of our simulation remain limited by two phenomena: the effective implementation of the progressive reciprocally tariff dismantling, and by the harmful fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic and other ongoing crises. Thank you for your attention, and I listen your question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hicham, and congratulations. I think Angel, the host, did not have to prompt you for the end. You were staying very much in time. Thank you very much. So let's proceed and take some questions from the audience. I already see one raised hand from Antoine Bouet, if I see that correctly. Please, Antoine, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Hicham. Thank you, Chairman, Mr. Chairman. I do not understand all the results that you have presented, honestly. So, for example, when you talk about rest of the world saving change, this is, well, you have mentioned that a gradual eliminations of custom duties in this scenario implies a negative impact on Morocco's export to Africa. Is it a result that you have obtained?
No, it's positive, but not very high.
Ah, okay. And the impact is relatively high on the Morocco's economy, because you have 3 or 4% of increase in GDP, but this is a complete elimination of tariffs on intra-African trade.
Yes, progressive.
So there is no sensitive products.
We have not achieved all analysis of result. we stopped in global global result. We have a lot of result of sector of activities from food, from agriculture.
But you do not have the countries are not allowed to identify some products on which there is no tariff elimination. Or you eliminate all tariffs.
Yes, yes. We have simulate that we have the rest of Africa is only the same only country, and we simulate without have a simulation by country. We haven't this information.
Okay. Okay, I see.
Thank you. Okay, that was and thank you, Mr. Boué, for raising that issue, because in fact that was also a question I had to Souleymane. I see he's raising his hand because if I understand correctly, and please Souleymane, maybe you can come in on that. I think this is also the case for for all the simulations. And I think it's a very valid question, because within the AfCFTA, for those that are maybe not familiar with the negotiations, the way the tariff liberalization is being negotiated is that the countries liberalize 90% of their tariff lines completely. Then there is 10% which are not immediately, for which there are sensitive goods, and out of those, 7% are liberalized with a longer time frame, and then 3% of the tariff lines, they're completely excluded from liberalization. So in the actual real AfCFTA scenario, we don't have 100% liberalization. Also considering that even 3% of tariff lines can actually cover quite a big amount of trade in those economies, of course, where the trade profiles are very concentrated on individual goods and items. So I just wanted to also add that as a comment. Now I see two hands. Maybe before giving again back to you, Dr. Hicham, maybe we can combine those two. So first I see Fusseini Traoré, and then Souleymane afterwards, and then we give over to Dr. Hicham again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have just maybe a quick comment. It seems to me that you are working with the PEP, one of the PEP standard model. So you have a disaggregation with between the rest, Africa and the rest of the world. But it doesn't seem to me that you have a free, so you have Morocco, Africa, and the rest of the world. But it doesn't seem to me that it is a free region global CGE model. So you have just a disaggregation of the rest of the world between Africa and the rest of the world. So they are not integrated in a free region global model. I'm saying that because you are mentioning that you are doing a reciprocal tariff liberalization. So I'm wondering, with a single country, but with free region, how do you handle the reciprocal part? So as you see, do you see my point? So you have only Morocco, which is modeled. You don't have the rest of Africa and Africa and the rest of the world, which is modeled. So how do you handle the reciprocal part of the story?
We suppose that the simulated Morocco from West Africa is the same opportunity create exportation for Morocco. We simulate that it's hypothesis that it's similar. It's not real, but I see that it's my first economic modeling. We haven't only only understand to use all the technical who use Fossini. And Fossini we have with us Souleymane. It's my coach in this exercise. He can see other elements for you.
Thank you, Dr. Hicham. And with that, I would hand over, in fact, also to Souleymane. I don't know if you had a question also, or wanted to maybe also add a comment on what has been said.
Thank you, Xaver. It's just a comment. Thank you very much, Hicham. In fact, Antoine, the work he presented here is an extension of what we have done during the training activities between F3, EDEP, and ATPC. And for the first step, he had a static model. And now we try to go to a dynamic model. And it's clear that there are some improvements to be done, because the question of a sensitive product is not included here, because we wanted to know if after the training, he can be able to run a model, a dynamic model, and to eliminate tariffs and interpret the result. It is the case, but it's not really the impact of AfCFTA, because we don't take into account different aspects of the agreements. And I think that the next step would be how to deal with the tariff lines and to take into account the sensitive products, and to make the simulation. The next step would be another one he can do. Thank you very much for the question. I think that he has assimilated what you teach him, and it is an improvement, and I think that he needs also support to continue. The second aspect of is the question of Fossini. In fact, here it's as you mentioned yesterday, it's very difficult to handle the AfCFTA with a single country model, because one part of the question is not captured by the modeling at the country level. But what we try to see is to how to disaggregate the rest of the world into blocks. And then if we try to liberalize the import from Africa, what will happen from the African countries? Because they can give some opportunity to Morocco to export by eliminating tariff from their sides. But we don't have the tariff of the African countries in the model. To approximately have it, what we have done is to exogenize a demand function of export of Morocco product to Africa, and to see if there is an opportunity to export, how the demand for Morocco product will be increased. We try to increase the Morocco exports to Africa by this way, and to have a part of the question. But it's not very simple. It can be improved, because during the training, Antoine proposed a solution. We try to go in this way, can be improved. And thank you very much to you, Hicham, for the work, and thank you very much, Xaver.
Thank you for all.
Thank you, Souleymane. I believe Antoine might briefly come in again. So over to you, and then we need to move over to Koffi actually for the next session. But please, Antoine.
Thank you, Chairman. Just 1 minute to say yes. With a single country, it's far from perfect, but you can model not only liberalizations of the country that is modeled by this by this, but also you can model reciprocity, and so an eliminations of tariffs on the exports of this country. So it's possible, and it is also possible to identify sensitive products. I do not know how you aggregate tariffs in the rest of Africa and in the rest of the world, but if you have a big database on tariffs and imports, you can make an aggregation with sensitive products and have something which is more realistic. It's not perfect because it's a single country trade model, and so it's bizarre to use this kind of instruments to model a trade agreement which is not with all the rest of the world, but it can be done.
Okay, thank you. I'm very happy to have this question to ameliorate my presentation and my paper. So in our matrix, it's very difficult to construct it, and we will use a recent matrix for the other paper.
Okay, thank you very much again, Dr. Hicham. And again, to the whole audience, please join me in giving a round of virtual applause to Dr. Hicham for his presentation, for the paper, and also for answering all the questions, and to all of you for your questions. We have some noise. Souleymane, I think it's on your side. If you could kindly mute yourself. Thank you very much. So with that, please, let's move to the third and final presentation of the session. So the third presentation would be given by Mr. Koffi Adantor Mihesso. I hope again I pronounced your name correctly, from the Agence Nationale de la Protection Civile in Togo, the National Agency for Civil Protection. And he will be presenting his paper and presentation on the AfCFTA, or ZLECAF as it's called in French, impact on employment, trade and growth in Togo. So after hearing about the overall results at Morocco, now let's go to Togo as the third case study. And then again, we can take questions and then maybe also cover some of the overall questions in the final discussion. Mr. Koffi, the floor is yours. I hope you can hear us and we can hear you. And I hope you can see the presentation already. So yes, okay. You have 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank Souleymane for having accepted to fund the work. First of all, I would like to greet all those who are following us in person and online. I'm a French speaker, as I have to present in English. Excuse me for some language difference. I am Koffi Adantor Mihesso from University of Lomé. The title of my presentation is Impact of the Implementation for the African Continental Free Trade Area on Employment, Trade and Growth in Togo. The plan of my presentation has 3 points. First point deal with evolution of Togo's foreign trade. Second point present methodology of riches, and the third point deal with the result obtained. An introduction. We say that Togo is a country of the Economic Community of West African States, and of the West African Economic and Monetary Union, covering an area of 56,600 square kilometers. It is bordered to the west by Ghana, and to the east by Benin, to the south by Atlantic Ocean, and to the north by Burkina Faso. On December 6, 2018, Togo adopts of the law authorizing the ratification to agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area and develop the national strategy to implement the African area in October 2019. The Togolese population is estimated to 7,1886,000 in 2021, with 75 under years of age. According to Ingrid regional unemployment on informal sector, the combined rate of term-based underemployment and unemployment in Togo is 16, with 15 for men and 17 for women. Please, next. This rate is higher among young people under 35, among people with higher education and in Lomé. Meve and Karingi 2013 estimate that work, both scale and unscale, would gain from increase in real wage in both the agricultural and the non-agricultural sector relative to a baseline scenario with the free zone. The economic partner agreement between ECOWAS and the European Union would harm intra-African trade. In the FTA were to be established and implemented before the EPA is fully implemented, the negative effect of this agreement on intra-African trade will be more than outside. As a result of the zone, Togo's export to its ECOWAS African partner will increase significantly. In this situation, the question of richness is that what is the impact on the implementation of free trade Africa on employment, trade, and growth in Togo? Next, please. An evolution of the foreign trade structure of Togo. We saw that evolution of export and import of goods. The results show a low level of competitiveness of the country in exchange for goods. Next. Next, please. On structure of merchandise exports, okay.
Apologies.
Okay. The result of this table show that nearly half merchandise export early are from industrial production, and nearly 1/4 from agricultural production in all year, meaning and other production account for the remainder. Next. Next, please. Okay, over the geographical distribution show Africa as the main destination for Togo's export, followed by Asia and Europe, regardless of the year considered over the period 2016-2020. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, this table, in general, it can be seen that almost one-third of messages import revenue come from consumer goods in all year. Capital goods and raw material and semi-finished products are in second place with significantly more than a quarter of vacant import revenue. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. Over the period from 2016 to 2020, the main continents supply goods to Togo were Asia and Europe. Africa and America ranked third and fourth respectively. Next, please. And methodology. The study adopted a partnership for economic policy model with in a single country, multi-sector requisite, dynamic computable general equilibrium model developed by Diallo al 2013. However, significant adjustments are made to the model as in Diallo and the lesson 2022. Firstly, export are disaggregated into export to African country and export to the rest of the world without Africa. Import have also been disaggregated. Labor is disaggregated into skilled labor and unskilled labor. For the looping of our model, we have adopted standard assumption. First, we assume that the nominal exchange rate and factor and domain are fixed. Moreover, we assume that capital is immobile between sectors. Next, please. Next, please. We assume that Togo has not influenced on world price, which results in the exogeneity of world export and import price. We also assume that Togo cannot borrow without limit from the rest of the world. As a result, the current account balance is exogenous. Finally, we assume that government spending on goods and service is an exogenous variable. To calibrate the model, the recent 2018 Togo disaggregated social accounting matrix is used. The results are presented by comparing the value of the variable without the implementation of the free trade Africa zone with that obtained from the implemented of the free trade from January 2021. Result 1, impact on employment. There is a negative effect on the free trade on the demand for skilled labor for the first 3 years, and then a positive effect from 2024. The agreement will have a positive impact on total employment and skilled employment. However, it will have not impact on the employment on unskilled labor. Next. Next, please. Result 2, impact on trade export. The results show a positive effect on the free trade on total export from the 4th year of implementation. This effect is due to a decrease in import to the rest of the world with the African country in favor on an increase in export to African country. Next, please. Result 3, impact on trade import. There is a negative effect on free trade on import from the rest of the world with the African country in the first 4 years of implementation, followed by a positive effect from 2025. On the other hand, the chart show a positive effect of free trade on import from African country in the first year of implementation. The increase in total import is due to these 2 effects. Result 4, impact on trade, total government revenue from import duty. The results show a decline in total government revenue from import duty in the first 2 years of free trade implementation, followed by a slight increase in such revenue from 2023. This is due the volume effect of importation. Next, please. Result first, evolution of GDP at market price. There is a negative effect of the free trade on gross domestic product in the first 2 years of implementation, followed by a positive effect from 2023. Next. To finish, I say that similar to the work of the African Trade Policy Center, this should show that Togo will benefit in several ways by implementing the free trade. Positive effects of the free trade are estimated on employment growth and improvement of its trade structure. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Koffi, and thank you also for staying within the time. Again, I think Angel did not have to use his role as the host to remind you of your time. Thank you very much for that. So again, as with the other two presentations, I mean, I would have a few questions myself, but I would first open, of course, to the audience. Yes, I see the first hand again by Husseini. Please, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So actually, regarding Togo, my suggestion will be, of course, to improve the model as we discussed before, but also, I think if you look at the trade data in Benin or in Togo, ICBT flows represent more than 70 or 80% of total regional trade, actually. So for these two countries, particularly for Togo and Benin. So I think something interesting would be to look at how you can improve the trade data to take into account ICBT flows and to see how this will change the degree of openness of the country, the economy, because it will change the size of the trade which is not distorted, because it is mainly with regional countries within ECOWAS, compared to the part of the trade which is distorted, and how this will change your results. I think that's something interesting to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Husseini. So I think this was more of a suggestion, and also in line with what has been discussed earlier. So I don't know if there is an immediate response to that, Mr. Koffi. Otherwise, maybe we can take the second question or second, let's see, question or comment by Emanuele Ferrari. Please, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. My comments was a little bit general. Maybe it goes into the direction also both the case study we have selected, we have been present today. I think Antoine before said that it was weird not to hear about a free trade agreement model with single country tool, and it's not the first. We have been seeing a few in this during these days. I was wondering whether, given that there is a global model that has been used, and Souleymane presented it in his first presentation, whether it would be a smart solution to try to find a way to link the results you get from your global models in terms of changing price, changing import tax, whatever, to the single country model, so that you would avoid modeling only the import side in a way, and try also to look at what's going to happen in your single country model in your export side. I don't want to make publicity, but at JSC we have done a similar example for Kenya. So maybe if you want, I'm happy also to point you to the work we've done, where we use the global model for analyzing the African trade agreements, and then we use a single country one using the results from the global one. Okay, it looks like, but yeah, it was a bit of publicity, but also comments, which I hope it would be helpful also for the presenters.
Thank you very much, Emanuele. Yeah, I mean, I also wanted to actually raise that as a question for me, I mean, slightly maybe outsider to this modeling work that is being presented. But I was also wondering actually how the results differ between the country-specific work and the more global work that Souleymane has presented in the beginning. Maybe we can get to that later than in the discussion. Also maybe here Souleymane, but I see that Antoine is also raising his hand again. So over to you as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that Emmanuel is right, and in part, and especially if you want to make an evaluations which which must be for the government or for. So it's important to use. It's much better to use a global model. So it's true. But of course, for pedagogic reasons, I think that it's great if you construct, if you design your own model from scratch. And this was, in fact, the method that I used during this training course. So what I want to say is that it's possible to make some simulations of regional trade model, a regional agreement with a single country trade model, even if it is not, it's far from perfect, but you have to, you must not implement an exogenous augmentations of exports. You must model the demand for exports of Morocco and or Togo, and you have to make it depend on tariffs, and in order to, and after that you have to make a statistical treatment of the aggregations of 54 African countries and 5,200 products into one partner, and this is difficult, but it can be done. You can design some, you can identify some sensitive products, so you can do something which is much better than an exogenous segmentations of your exports. But of course, I'm completely agree with Emmanuel. The use of multi-country trade model is much better, in particular for serious evaluations of the agreements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antoine, and thank you also actually for mentioning the modeling course, which I realize I should have maybe mentioned in my opening remarks. I wanted to get to that briefly in the end, but now that you mentioned, so also for all the other participants, maybe important to know that these analyses are also part and sort of the outcomes of a trade policy modeling course. I think that that has been done by ECA, if I'm not mistaken, also together with IFPRI, and also with support by GIZ. Please, Souleymane or also IFPRI colleagues, correct me if I'm wrong, but I see Antoine nodding. So maybe good to know that these and this is, I think, makes it also all the more impressive that both Koffi and Dr. Hicham are presenting here today, because I mean this is something that really was growing out of a course, and I think that's why so I'm very happy to see that work, even though of course some of the models and the results might benefit from my further adjustment. But yeah, still, and thank you also very much, Emanuele, for sharing a link to a study on Kenya.
Sorry,
Koffi, do you have? Yeah, sorry, please.
No, sorry. Souleymane asked me privately, but I share with everybody. Sorry.
No, but I think it might even be of interest to other participants as well. Koffi, do you have any? I mean, I know these were mostly comments, not so much questions, but maybe still you want to respond to them.
Okay, thank you. I thank all for your comments. I will take them into account in the improvement of the paper. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Koffi, and I'm glad to hear that these are useful, and that you can use them also for further working on the paper and on the analysis. Now, thank you again, and let's again give please Koffi a round of virtual applause, everyone. Thank you for doing the paper, for sharing the presentation with us. Thank you very much. So we still have, well, 10-15 minutes that we had originally planned for the discussant, Simon Mevel from ATPC, who, as I mentioned in the beginning, unfortunately cannot be with us today. So we have some time left now. I believe there might be some additional questions, maybe also now that we heard all the three presentations. We heard the global model, the methodology and the results from Souleymane. highlighting the impact of the AfCFTA on a few selected countries. And we heard the two presentations specifically on Morocco and on Togo, on the country through the country-specific models. So are there any questions or comments in addition to the ones that were made already, maybe on this, maybe also on the larger question of modeling the AfCFTA, impact analysis on the AfCFTA, that yeah, anyone in the audience, please raise your hand or come in if you have any questions or comments. Okay. I don't see any questions right now. I mean, of course, we also don't have to necessarily use up all the time. I mean, if we have,
the Chairman,
yes, please, Dr.
in
Hicham.
first, I'm modeling in static model. It's 2 week or 3 week. I prefer of more dynamic with Souleymane. The result is not different. Finally, we hope to try again our model in the GAMS to regarding more for example, food for Morocco, agriculture and food export, and in import to regarding the energy sector.
Great, thank you very much, Hicham, for informing us. And Souleymane, since you have been mentioned now a few times, and you are also part, I think, of all the also work on the country specific models. Maybe do you want to also just come in, maybe complement some of what has been said? I don't want to put you on the spot. I just want to give you the chance to maybe respond.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank all of the participants and the comments. What was presented by Hicham and Koffi is an extension what they have done during the training, and I think that it's not perfect. It is, but we had some very interesting comments and suggestions to improve the work. And I know some of you, I know Antoine and sorry, Fuseni, Emanuele, and thank you very much for your comment. And we will back to you in order to help us to improve the model, because what is important at the end is that when the people are trained, like you have done during the program, joint program, IFRI and ECA, is to help them to continue working with the tools and to improve their knowledge, their competencies. And it is very important to have the time to expose the result front of you. You are very experimented, and I know that you are very available to help African researchers to be more qualified. And thank you very much for that. And we will be in touch with you in order to improve the work. It is at this stage not a work to guide the economic policy, but it is a work to help African researchers to improve their knowledge, their qualification, in order to go to that kind of work which can be useful for the next years. Because if we don't have the expertise in the African countries, we will continue to import, export expertise from outside Africa. And what you have done, in terms of training, in IFPRI, in AgroDep, and other research networks is really very, very beneficial for us. And also Emmanuel for PANAP. I don't know where you are with PANAP. And for ECA, for ATPC also, it will be very good to establish a relationship between PANAP and ATPC because I know that you are doing a good job in PANAP. Thank you very much for all of you. Thank you, Xaver, for the support, and thank you very much, Hicham and Koffi.
Thank you, Souleymane. Before I close, Koffi, you want to come in?
I want to thank all the comments. I greet all. I greet all. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please, if you allow me to say something real quick, if you
yes,
can
please.
allow me. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. I just want to say special thanks to Koffi. I don't know if you can remember. I know him very well since his early days at the university. It's really great to hear him speak very well English like that. I know it's not easy for those from French-speaking country to have this kind of interaction with people around the world. I want to thank them. I want to thank Souleymane as well. It's a really nice platform that you provide us to express ourselves one more time. I want to thank Purdue University. I think the link that we have to get into this meeting, it looks like it's from Purdue University, right? Okay, thank you, Purdue. I hope we'll have more opportunity like this to talk more about Africa, right? Africa, we have a lot to say about this lovely continent. Again, I don't want to hold the talk for so long, so I just want to thank everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we could not see your name, but thank you very much for your intervention. Now I see no hand. So if nobody else wanted to come in, now is the last chance to raise your hand. Otherwise, I would actually end the discussion round already, and would just leave me with thanking you all. I think some of the thank you remarks have already been made by others. So thanks to all the institutions that were involved, UNECA, ATPC, IFPRI also, the researchers, of course, first of all, and I can only reiterate and emphasize what Souleymane just said. So also from our perspective as GIZ, who have been supporting this this work, the idea is exactly as Souleymane said. I think both the support to better understanding of the economic impacts of the AfCFTA, but also capacity building when it comes to economic modeling and research here on the African continent. And in that sense, I think it's really great to see what is coming out of this course. Great to see the participants present here already at this conference. And in general, I think it is clear to all of us working on the AfCFTA that there is so much enthusiasm right now, so much interest in that agreement, but then the knowledge about the actual impacts that the agreement will have, I think there is still a lot that needs to be done, both on the global or continental level, but also in specific countries. I believe that some of the work we've seen today, especially also the micro simulations, do add an important aspect to that, to also the results that we know from other studies. And I believe that this will continue, will also cover different aspects. I know there is also work ongoing on issues such as climate change, gender, of course. Souleymane mentioned that in his presentation, actually. And then eventually, as was also mentioned, I think by one of the speakers before, of course, at least for me, coming more from the policy side rather than from the academic research side, I think the relevant question will then also be how all this information and the knowledge that we generate will actually feed into the policy processes. I think, for example, on the gender aspect, some of you might know that the AfCFTA Secretariat has started the process of negotiating a protocol on women and youth. What exactly will be included in that protocol, I think it remains to be seen. The economic impact of such a protocol will then also have to, remains to be seen. But obviously the basis for that is to have sound analysis, sound impact analysis, and then hopefully this will then also feed into the policy processes and help us all design better and more evidence-based trade agreements for a sustainable trade policy. So I think this was everything I had to share from my side. So a few minutes before the official end, I would then close the session. I would thank again all of you, presenters, participants, Angel as the host also. Thank you very much. And have a good afternoon or evening in whatever time zone you are. And looking forward to speaking soon. Thank you very much.